Shirley here with Sirius Stellus Moon, and this is an energy reading. Take this one with a grain of salt. Shout out to Lita Sefa because it refers directly to her energy reading about somebody losing faith or something of that sort. So again, take it as it resonates. Chiron in Aries. So, okay, everybody is their own healer and their own reader. So what I'm seeing is that there may have been people who were basing their trust on extortion, and whether it's by cultural difference, but I'm getting it's not cultural difference, but something more than that. Somebody was who they say they were. Remember all the light of Sefer channelings about somebody is who they say they are. Meaning, in that case, zero rape, zero slavery, zero energy siphoning. And certain people that may have grown in extortion settings, okay, may have based their trust believing that they will traffic someone and mind control them, and that way they will trust them. That trust is gebroken. Never was, even. To the extent that that was going for them, meaning that they raped and trafficked, and used mind control, dark occult, and whatever energy, whatnot, that is basically, Laita Sefer treated that as a Giselle, okay? Think of it as the one case that does get tended to. Now, there are various interests to drop Peter rings right now. Think about it. During the 1990s, United States really loved to expose the Rolodex because it involved certain people in the Hague International Court of Justice, and United States really didn't want to go over litigation for war crime for genocide of Kurdistani people. This is also why the operation to invade Iran with Kurdistani people kind of never took rise because it got a veto from United States. Okay, there was an attempt. Israel wanted to join forces with Kurdistani people and boots on ground Iran. And even though it is right now playing in favor of the U.S. interest, United States knows that the next step is them being again brought up for litigation for the genocide in Kurdistan during the Gulf War. That the fact that the people who supported the separatists from The Hague were involved in Rolodex got Rolodex exposed, namely the true dossiers. Um, and so we are at such times where various people from various interests have a lot of at stake. And think about, for example, Israel doesn't want to be litigated for war crimes. What did it do? Well, the Epstein files, although they expose Israeli government, play into the fact that the entire world was in it with Epstein. And there are forces that want to replace the government in Israel. So those various interests cause exposure of extortion cults. Not a good time. Now, I know that in the 1996 there was a ritual during the White March. But again, that smugness is basically people that get smug about getting away with basically play into the hands of extortion cults. And so any trust that was based on believing that somebody would be trafficked, that somebody would be tortured and mind controlled, that trust that can no longer be trusted. Or that somebody's vulnerability is going to be used against them, that would be a smug move in it's kind of like reading the map correctly. That's basically not opportune to play into extortion cults and any form of targeting individuals, putting them to trauma, trying to mind control them, trying to manage them. Okay, which by the way could be considered handler, trying to force them to be sexual, trying to traffic them by women, by men. Okay, people are now see that people are not going to go with that. They're going to defend themselves, and they have the legal right to murder anybody that wants to do that to them. Okay, because this is a crime against humanity. And so the people that had based their trust on the smugness of doing those things, they need to face the reality. They cannot trust that they will traffic this person or mind control this person and underneath glove hands and have that person responsible for their crimes. No. People never consented. And by the way, nobody can consent to such. Nobody can consent to being trafficked. Nobody can say that sex work is work when it's trafficking. And and to the people say, but I consent to that, but I'm a sex worker. No, darling, you are trafficked. I know you are trafficked. I believe you that you are trafficked. I believe you that you were tortured. And until it's zero rape, zero slavery, zero trafficking, zero energy siphoning, don't talk to me about sex work. Being raped is not your income. In fact, it kills your endocrine system. And very likely, if you say that, it's probably because you are tortured and trafficked and are milliseconds away from trafficking others, or maybe you already have had to traffic others because you cannot be raped anymore and you cannot suffer the rape that people call sex work. People that capitalized on enslavement and anything to do with rape, definitely when it comes to trafficking, is enslavement and energy siphoning. They have built on something that will never yield, and any smugness. Now, most of the people that are associated with that are not smug. They're just kind of like caught up and actually talking about that and openly is their ticket out of that. Um, but the people that are still somehow smug about that, that smugness is meant to assassin them, very simply put. Um, Now, the trajectory of those things is basically putting people in position where um, they it's kind of like even the adrenaline of a person is being attacked in that way is so severe that a person like that can sometimes they can go into freeze and fawn and so on, but they can also go into fight, and a person in a fight mode there can lift a truck. Okay, let alone kill a person that thinks that they are client of sex worker, or they try to traffic someone, or and particularly because there was a lot of helplessness around the situation. People use dark occult. People use um, technological interfaces. People and people try to gaslight on that. Like, what can I say? Um, so the people that base their trust on trying to do that to a person, they may face this kind of like the compounding backlash of all the things that they didn't really face the backlash of, compounded. Like, you think about exponential interest, exponential rage, compounded, and Mars going to go into Aries. And when Aries is the sudden action. And so what's going to happen, likely, for I hope that people that were building on trafficking others or enslaving others, I hope that they go short on it. Like, that's the best thing to do, because you know Donnie Darko speaks about Aries' first deacon as the axe. Okay, and I treat it as a metaphorical axe so that everybody's blood pressure comes down. But the metaphorical acts kind of like, it doesn't necessarily seem like a rational act to hit somebody in an axe, and it's like, oh, but they got to go to prison and this and that. First of all, they don't, because it's escaping trafficking, and it's full diplomatic immunity. In fact, to put them in prison is a crime against humanity, for which they can kill the judge. Um, you say, how are they going to kill the judge? I don't know. Okay, but here's the thing: Mars in Aries is exalted, and it's quick, fast action to terminate an issue for good. And this is a long-withstanding issue. Saturn and Neptune tell us it's a long-withstanding issue, and so it's kind of like, once the X has split the head of the trafficker, it has already split the head of the trafficker, whether it was a rational action or not. And Mars here, or the use of the axe here, is to kill the rapist. Okay, of course, I'm speaking about the metaphorical axe. That axe can be a nameless. That axe can be um, many things. That axe can be somebody that was tortured and programmed, suddenly taking up power, and in one swift move, boom! And that axe can be somebody that was sex trafficked and tortures as what is supposed to be a client, and butchers their body so gruesomely that people will be afraid to go to that particular so-called sex worker. Okay, Aries wants to be released from confinement. And so, zero rape, zero slavery, zero energy siphoning, going short on anything that was capitalizing on these three is the best advice I can give to anyone. And they should not think that their bloodline culture, past or whatnot. I was seeing a picture of, think about Oppenheimer. And I was seeing like a picture of someone's inner child, and it's like they drop a bomb, and there are margins, and everybody's suffering, and they go to their lawyer, and they're like, Okay, am I an underdog already? Could you now represent me now that I'm a big criminal? Am I an underdog already? Because it's kind of like someone wasn't represented at that when they were the victim of a sex offense. That's the power of Mars slowly coming to the first decan of Aries. Nothing that doesn't align with love that is actually loving, honoring the sexual and non-sexual. Um, Relaxed arousal, not misplaced arousal. Nothing that doesn't align with that can sustain. One cannot have the excuse, I wanted you, I loved you, I this, I that. Okay, love that is actually loving. If you love, don't rape. If you love, don't threaten. If you love, abolish anything, abolish trafficking. It's not simple. Well, being subjected to these things is not simple either. So any trust that was based on basically um, being the dominant in a situation or controlling the situation or trying to handle or manage someone, which basically means was trusting that they would torture a person to loss of sense of self and mind control them, that is not a ground to trust. Or even somebody that trusted that they will murder somebody successfully. I also want to talk a little bit about the 18th degree because we had Mars going through the 18th degree, and with the 18th degree, it's purging evil. And the most, and usually it has to do with sexual boundary violation. And then when that happens, the person has to purge the evil on the person that attacked them. Trying to do that on an innocent person will just perpetuate an addiction to cycle of hurt without resolution. Trying to blame shift will perpetuate something that is going to compound for the person that tried to blame shift when they were the rapist. Trying to make somebody go crazy is going to make them get away with all these things, okay? Because they're like, if they are crazy, then it means everything is allowed. Trying to use the go crazy and attack the raped rather than the rapist. But here's the thing, even with the 18th degree, it's best to have zero torture. It's like if somebody has to kill, okay, but zero suffering. Um, and and yet if somebody was raped, there is a purgatory. And a purgatory is on the people that raped them. If they try to divert it to another direction, it's going to cause compounding evil. Somebody that was thinking that they can trust someone to not go into the compounding evil towards the person that tries to traffic them and base their trust on that, um, that is not where I would rest my assurances. somebody that was trusting that somebody wouldn't answer or wouldn't reply. Now, if somebody was in a helpless situation, Mars can suddenly have the shifting gears. And again, it's a metaphorical act. It can be exposing a name list. It can be speaking up about, okay, whether there were families that were involved and so on and so forth. Okay, it's a lot of names. Mars is names. It's kind of like don't put somebody in a corner and they'll talk about the structure. Put somebody in a corner, they'll talk about the structure and the names.